Okay, so Alan Watts said this thing, we didn't come into the world, we came out of it. Just want to see if I can think through that a bit and then see if I can loop around and capture a little bit of Douglas Harding on the way back. I can't remember the exact quotation that I'm thinking of here that Professor Anton that you, Corey, cited, but I think it is relevant what he's talking about. Okay, we didn't come into this world, we came out of it. Yeah, I think where I start with that is I'm thinking of a number of things. I'm thinking of consciousness, I'm thinking of language, I'm thinking of the fall actually. I think, Corey, you mentioned, there was a short biblical reference in your video, and I think that's a really significant moment to think of, the fall from grace. Because I think when we're talking about the world in that phrase, we didn't come into the world, we came out of it. I think the world, for me at least, is kind of synonymous with nature. At least that's how I'm imagining it. It's not. I don't think he's talking about the built environment. I might be wrong, but I don't think so. I think the image he's got of the world there is nature or the universe, the natural world in some mythic way, and the coming out of it. But yeah, let me just see if I can run the biblical stuff past that, because in a sense we do come into the world in the myth of Genesis, and that rather, well, we're coming into it twice, don't we? Because there's the the God waves his magic wand myth, and we just kind of appear out of the vacuum. But another one, God crafts us out of the dirt of the garden. So in that one I think we come into it because we're made of it. There's something there of that. But the we, I think, features there in the garden. In Phoebe, Guy! Sorry, dog. No problem. Sorry if I startled you there. Come on, you two. But yeah, the we that features there, the we that comes into the world that's made out of the mud of the garden, I don't think it's a we would recognise. I think it's more like my dog's, that kind of an existence or an entity is being postulated there. I think it's not until we taste the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, and the repercussions for that, the consequences that flow from that, and being cast out of it. I think that's the point in which we come out of the world in a way. We leave nature. We leave the suchness of nature to lie alongside it, to stand outside of it and become consuchness. And that's when the kind of consciousness arises for me, I think, in that moment, mythologically speaking. And here I'm just kind of reminded that sapiens, Homo sapiens, the word sapient in that means both to think and to taste, I believe. I think it comes from a word that means to taste. So there's this something to do with tasting knowledge that has driven us out of nature beyond the bounds and given us consciousness. And as I say, we've come out of the world. I suppose I'm also reminded of Steven Pinker's book, Language as a Window into Human Nature. It makes sense completely intuitively to think of that, to hear that sentence to me, a window into human nature. That human nature and nature generally, as I guess, is kind of inside somewhere that we are outside of, and we can look back through the window using the language that we have, language into human nature. We're cast out again. We're kind of cast out of nature, and can only kind of peep through the window using these word things. And again, Alan Watts. We are cast out. We come out of the world. I mean, that whole sentence only becomes possible if we have already been cast out, if we've already come out of the world. The we that's mentioned in there, or the I. If I say I came out of the world, I didn't come into it. I think that's a kind of general statement. This whole idea of an I, at least as we understand it, as sapient beings, as tasting beings with taste, I've got this kind of external have been cast out. We are kind of external to ourselves. We're kind of eccentric to our embodied experience. And here I guess I'm thinking about Drew Leder, or Drew Leder, I'm not sure the pronunciation, but I think you've made some videos about Corey, I've made a couple, in which he talks about our experience as being, well, it's our bodies as being absent. In his book, The Absent Body, you know, we're kind of ecstatically cast out of our bodies just within our sense perceptions. You know, we look out into the world, but we don't see our eyes. What we see is the world. You know, here we are like little flashlights, casting our beams on the walls of the world and experiencing the bright patch that's cast on the wall. And that's where our experience is, on the wall. We never experience the batteries, we never experience the bulb. So again, like we've come out of the torch, we've come out of the flashlight, we've come out of nature, and we've come out of the garden, and we've come out of the world. And there we are as light little illuminated patches on the walls. Okay, so let's see if I can just loop that back into Douglas Harding. Douglas Harding, I can't remember the quotation that you cited there, Corey, but his general project is a kind of phenomenological, for me at least, it's a kind of application of phenomenology to, well, not just to use language as a window back into human nature, but maybe to kind of step through again. But you don't step through, kind of so hard to explain, isn't it? You don't re-enter nature and just become reabsorbed into it and re-enter that kind of state of prelapsarian innocence. You go back into it transformed. You go back into it having stepped outside of it. You know, you're cast out of the garden, you look back, you see what the garden's like, and then you go back into it with new knowledge, almost a kind of scientifically informed consciousness that allows you to function in the garden again. And I think Harding's project is something like that. It's as I say, it's a kind of an applied phenomenology, using the sense organs, using that kind of stuff that Leder talks about almost, recognizing ourselves as the flashlight, as the pattern of light on the wall cast by the flashlight, trying to find ways to mobilize the senses to act in a way which, or just to draw our attention to things that are happening in the senses that are more like a re-embracing or a re-entry into the form of the world. So he does all those exercises of pointing back at yourself. So rather than here we are looking through our eyes, as if with the frame of our eyes or the frame of our glasses acting as the kind of windows that we peep into the world through, and seeing and talking become kind of synonymous here. So seeing which we normally have, totally non-consciously, as a window into human nature. Now we are looking out of our eyes through the window into human nature. A lot of Harding's exercises are about drawing attention to that frame, including the frame within the world, so that so you take the frame into the world, or you take the knowledge of the frame into the world. You re-enter the form. Go on, Paul. Yeah, that's probably like 20 minutes or something. I better stop here. Yeah, it's interesting. So we don't come out of the world, we don't come into the world, we come out of it after Watts. That resonates for me across the fall from grace, across the kind of mythologization of what consciousness involves, and the language that comes with consciousness, which acts as a window into human nature, but not necessarily a window that places on the outside of that nature. And then through practices like Harding's, we can try to draw our attention away from gazing toward the window to looking at the frames, looking at the walls, to incorporating outside and inside into a single worldview.